Everyone. Welcome to this East West Railway Company online session with your neighbouring parishes and councillors along Buckinghamshire. My name is Jordi Vescoich and I'm one of the engagement managers here at EWRCO. We are pleased that you can join us to this second meeting following the one that we held back in April on the first week of consultation. And as advised on the invitation, the session today is an opportunity for you to raise any outstanding questions that you or your residents might have on the proposals that we have put forward for consultation. Now that you've had a chance to engage with all the documents that we've published, and I'm guessing that like residents will have also been in touch with you with some questions. And this is really to kind of ensure that we've tackled your key questions before you submit your responses to the consultation. Ahead of today's session, we ask you to let us know if there were any questions or issues that you wanted us to kind of address during the meeting. Thank you to those of you who've written to us. If you haven't, no problem. We have allocated plenty of time for Q&A. And you'll have your chance to kind of raise any questions. To let you know that we're holding similar sessions with all the parishes and councillors within the consultation zone between Oxford and Cambridge throughout the week. And in terms of structure of the session today, so we're going to start with a brief presentation just to kind of recap on what it is that we're consulting on in your area, as well as kind of tackle some of the key questions that we have received from your area around like in previous sessions, public webinars, live chats, correspondence, before we move on to a Q&A for which we have allocated 50 minutes. And then we will wrap up with some next steps. Said that, I'm joined by a few of my colleagues who will introduce themselves in a second. And we also have a couple of colleagues from ACOM who are supporting us holding this session with note taking and monitoring the chat bar. Before we start with the presentation, I'm going to run you through a brief housekeeping and Zoom etiquette note. By now, many of you will be familiar with the platform that we're using, but just as a reminder, you'll find in the bar below your screen different features, including like the buttons to mute and unmute yourself, share your camera, open the chat window, or check the list of participants. We would be grateful if you could rename yourself in case that your Zoom account doesn't display your actual name already. Although I think that like I see most of you have already names in it, so that's great. If you experience any technical issues during the session, please email contact@eastwestrail.co.uk. We'll be monitoring that the inbox, and if for whatever reason you were, I don't know, like kind of removed from the meeting, we would then try and work with you to get you back in. In terms of the Q&A, so we're going to try and address all the questions that you raised to us. If there's any that we we can't because we ran out of time, we would take away and follow up with you via email afterwards. When we go into the Q&A, if you want to raise any questions, please indicate so by pressing the raise your hand button, which you can find at the on the bar below, but if not, it's within the participants section on the bottom right. Also, reminder that the session is being recorded and that the recording, together with the slides that we're going to present in a second, will be available on our website next week. And if now we can put up the slides, we can quickly show you all the different parishes and wards that we have invited to this session this afternoon, and then we will kick off the presentation. So we can move on a couple of slides, Lily, to I think, like, can we go back one? Yes, these. So basically, just a quick kind of picture of when we say that we're kind of talking to Buckinghamshire today. These are all the different kind of neighbours of yours that we have invited to this session, all these parishes. And if we go on to the next slide, you'll be able to see all the ward councillors as well that we have invited. So without further ado, if we can move on to the next slide, in terms of what we're going to be covering today, as I said earlier, so we're going to be doing a brief recap of what we're consulting on in your area, covering key questions that we have received so far from, as I said, like public webinars, live chats, correspondence from you as well. And then we're going to sort of have a reminder of how you can get involved with the consultation as well as your communities, and then we'll move on to the Q&A. So in terms of the current public consultation, as you'll probably be aware, we started it on the 31st of March, and it's running until the 9th of June, so there's still a couple of weeks to go. If we move on to the next slide, in terms of what we are consulting on during this 10-week consultation, so the consultation really is an opportunity for you to share any thoughts and views on a series of emerging proposals that we have put together for the project, for the East West Rail project. And we are really interested in hearing from you on these proposals, specifically on what we're consulting on throughout. So there's two elements. One is customer experience and railway operations, which is really what we're consulting on specifically in Buckinghamshire, where we're looking at this throughout the route. We're asking everyone, but in Buckinghamshire, this is the main thing that we are consulting you on. However, though, if you want to provide input on any of the other proposals, you're more than welcome to, but this is what's specific to Buckinghamshire. And then when it comes to proposed infrastructure development, we're looking at different kind of parts of the railway. The reason why the Buckinghamshire is not in here is because the infrastructure development for this area is already being constructed. So it's kind of like one step ahead of all the other areas that we're looking at in that sense. But just to kind of like run through quickly, as you can see, so we're looking at proposals for Oxford to Bicester. We're also looking at works between Bletchley and Bedford on the Marston Bay line. Then we have specifically some works in Bedford, and then Clapham Green to the Eversdens, Harlton to Hoxton, and the Shelfsford to Cambridge station in that part of like CS3. I can see on the chat bar from Steve if so as in terms of like the presentation that we're sharing at the moment, yes, we will be sharing the deck, and we will make it available together with a recording of this session at next week. So so we will be available there. And Nigel, if you have an important question to ask.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
You've mentioned Buckinghamshire. Are you not talking about the section from Camborne through to Cambridge?
Yes, yeah, but
today, I mean, you're mentioning Buckinghamshire. I don't see anybody among the attendees whom I recognised. Do you realise that my parish is not Wadden near Milton Keynes, but Wadden near Cambridge?
I'm really sorry if that's the case. So the session for so sorry, which parish do you represent?
I represent Wadden, but there are two Waddens in your area. One is just south of Camborne, and the other one is over near Milton Keynes, the other side of Bedford. Have you got the wrong Wadden?
I see. I'm really sorry about that. We might be for this session, and I apologize because I recognize that the session that it might be of interest to you is actually happening tonight at 7, which is specific.
Oh God, no! I've got another meeting then.
Camborne.
So how did this, have you got, this is, I apologise to the other participants, but if you've got the data, it makes me worry about the data you have on us, in that you have got the wrong one.
No, we're definitely going to take this away. I'm pretty sure that this has been kind of like a human error, because I'm aware that there's like two wasn't, but so if we can take this away and we'll look into exactly what happened here. But I apologize for having
can I
invited you to.
Yeah, is there somebody? I don't want to hold up your presentation, because it's no good to me listening about the central section. Can I need to contact somebody? We were obviously sent the wrong information.
Yes, if so Lily here in the call, if we can take this away.
Well, I'm going to I don't want to waste your time. Can I use that contact number that's on the email, and then
yes,
I will leave the
that's
meeting.
Yes, if you could, if you want to email us to contact at eastwestrail.co.uk.
There's no point in me wasting everybody's time. I will leave now. But
much appreciated, Nigel, and apologies about that.
Right, okay,
sorry.
Bye.
Brilliant, thank you. So sorry about that. So picking up where I left it, sorry. So as you can see on the screen, this is what we're consulting on. If we can move on to the next slide. So just to give you kind of like an idea, so this is the shape of the consultation zone, all the way from Oxford to Cambridge. And if we move on to the next slide, we can then cover more specifically what it is that we're consulting here, which is customer experience and railway operations. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Martin, who's going to tell you a bit more about this.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Phillips. I'm Head of Customer Strategy at East West Rail. And I just want to kind of summarise the part of the consultation document that covers customer experience and railway operations. So there's an important, let's go to the next slide, please. There's an important reason why we're consulting on this at this stage. We're focusing on the end-to-end customer journey, not just the stations or the onboard part of that journey. Consulting on this at this time gives us feedback from across the whole route, and this is a route-wide part of the consultation, that helps us actually design our infrastructure from a customer-centered basis. So it helps us when we get to concept and detailed design stages beyond the non-statutory consultation, that we actually start to design in your feedback and your thoughts on the best way to operate this railway and the best way to deliver a good, excellent customer experience. In the consultation document, there's some very specific areas that we're consulting on. And next slide, please. The train service itself, so actually stopping patterns, the actual regularity of the service, those kind of operational aspects. Then also what your thoughts are on the station experience. And station experience incorporates active travel, cycle to the station, those kind of first mile, last mile aspects of station, as well as the way that we present information at stations, what facilities people might like to see at stations. Then the on-train experience again, what kind of spaces people would like to see on the station. How will our customers actually use these trains? Is it for visiting friends, commuting, business use? Because all of that feedback helps us design in the ability to provide a great on-train experience. Then actually interaction with railway customer service teams. So our colleagues and staff that we're going to be providing throughout our experience, what would you like those interactions to be like? And we know that a really, really important thing for our customers at the moment is customer information, be that digital, be that traditional signposting, be that actually what our staff are providing through their interactions with customers. So these are some particular areas we know in terms of our end-to-end journey provide pain points and anxiety at the moment based on research. So we really want to hear your thoughts on these things so we can build this thinking in. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Martin. So this is basically on your screen representation of the different areas that we're consulting on, and the reason why the Buckinghamshire section doesn't have a square and instead has like the dotted lines is, as I said, because the infrastructure development is already ongoing, and so this then kind of like makes the customer experience kind of like the encompassing section that goes all the way from Oxford to Cambridge, really. If we will move on then to the next slide, we're going to then quickly cover your questions answered, which basically is a range of questions, themes, and issues that we have been hearing during the public consultation that are specific to this area. And as I said, like we've collated these from stuff that we've received through via email that that's been flagged to us in live chat events, public webinars. And if then we move on to the next slide, we've basically collated it in different themes. So we are going to start with the environment, and I think like Stephen, you can take this one, which the question is, we can move on to the next slide. Will the line be electrified, or will East West Rail services be diesel trains?
Thanks, Geordie, and good afternoon, everyone. My name's Stephen Barker. I'm the Development Manager for the East West Railway Company, with primary responsibility for overseeing the introduction of our services on the Oxford to Bedford section. So to answer the question that's come through on this, will the line be electrified, or will East West Rail services be diesel trains? This is a really important question. It's one that, as I'm sure you can understand, has come up quite a few times during the course of the consultation. The important thing to say on this is, at this stage, no final decision has been made on this by central government. Obviously, we're working towards complying with all the legislation in relation to net zero carbon effects and so on of building and operating the railway. And of course, the government's already set a target for the rail industry to remove diesel-only trains from the network by 2040. We currently are looking at the specification for our long-term fleet of trains. That's the fleet of trains that will operate once the line's open through to Cambridge. That's work that's ongoing at the moment, and we're working with potential bidders from across the rolling stock market to understand what they can potentially offer us. And that includes also not just looking at the perhaps a more conventional way of doing things, which is either a diesel train or a train that runs on overhead wires, but looking at some of the emerging technologies, some of which are beginning to show quite strong promise. So we've got a range of technologies out there now. They include everything from hydrogen-powered trains through to battery trains, and trains that operate on a mixture of different fuels depending on where they are at different points in their journey. So, for example, a train that takes energy from overhead wires for part of its journey, but then uses batteries for other parts of its journey. So I think there's more work to do on this yet, and there's a way to go before we get to our final answer, but we'll provide more information on this when we get to our statutory consultation, which will be happening next winter. Okay, if we can have the next slide, please. So the next question's around the Aylesbury Spur. Can we have the next slide? So currently, the consultation that we're partway through at the moment considers 3 connection stages, as we're calling them, for the railway. The first one is the stage from Oxford to Milton Keynes, and that's the piece of work that's already underway, where the existing infrastructure is being rebuilt to provide for that service. This consultation, in terms of the infrastructure at least, focuses more on connection stage 2 because connection stage 3. In stage 2, we see the commencement of services through from Oxford to Bedford, and then in stage 3 from Oxford through to Cambridge. And the next slide, please. So the question here is the Aylesbury Spur still part of our plans? We've done a lot of work on the Aylesbury Spur, and we're continuing to work with our colleagues both in Department of Transport and Network Rail on this. The original or previous proposals for the services to and from Aylesbury would not have provided a reliable enough service. So we've looked again at what is actually required to deliver a suitably reliable service, so a service that people will actually want to use, that they can actually rely on to complete their journeys. We've still got further work to do on that. We have to demonstrate to government that the proposals we're putting together represent best value for money for taxpayers. But that work is underway. We are in discussion with government, as we say, over this. And ultimately, it will be a decision for government to make, but there is work ongoing to resolve that question. Next slide, please. So a few questions around the construction work. We have the next one, please. So we've had a few questions around the ongoing construction work that's taking place primarily in the Buckinghamshire area. In particular, some quite specific ones there. The tarmac breaking up on the newly constructed passing bays just off the A413 on the road towards Gorcott, and damage to soft surfaces, by the side of the road due to HGVs. In response to that, we are obviously in contact with the East West Rail Alliance. The East West Rail Alliance are the people undertaking the work of that section, working for Network Rail. We have raised issues to them, and remedial works are being carried out where issues are occurring. So just to say, yes, that has all been taken on board and passed on to the East West Rail Alliance to deal with. And can we move on to the next slide, please? And I'm going to pass back to Geordie now for a couple of questions on our approach to consultation.
Brilliant, thanks, Stephen. So in this area, basically, we've got 3 questions from pretty much like all the areas, but starting with the first one. So around if we will extend the consultation to allow for face-to-face events. So we have provided a 10-week period for the current consultation, and the closing date remains the 9th of June. To do this consultation, we followed the guidelines that have been provided by different institutions. During lockdown, there were a number of consultations taking place, guidelines were set, and we've followed those. And on that context, we've provided many different ways for people to engage with the consultation. We set up a series of virtual consultation rooms. We provided a wide range of documents, not only like consultation document, technical report, but also a number of other supporting documents, including maps that were available on our website since the very beginning. And at the same time, for those people that didn't feel that comfortable engaging with the online setup, we also have different comms channels, including a dedicated telephone line that it's open 24/7. People can also request physical copies of the documents, and so overall we're pleased that what we've provided has been good and more than enough for people to kind of engage with the consultation. And so far, given the numbers of that we've seen of visitors to the website, to the site, at least the data that we have tells us so as well. Also to flag that this is part of an ongoing kind of conversation, that there will be further opportunities to raise issues for consideration throughout the development of the project. So this is an non-statutory consultation, and before we put forward kind of our plans to government, we're going to be holding a statutory consultation next year. So it's just part of kind of an ongoing conversation. Going on to the next question around how will you analyze feedback from the consultation? So basically, we are going to be looking very carefully at all the responses that we receive. We're actually going to have like people actively reading at each one of the responses. Normally, like in these consultations, there's kind of softwares that are incredibly good at kind of like filtering questions, but in this instance, we're not doing that. We want to read each and every single one of the responses that we get. And once that all the responses have been reviewed, we are then going to be publishing a feedback report in which we are going to be explaining how we have taken into account all the feedback that we have received. And we will use all the responses that we have received alongside the ongoing environmental, economic, and technical studies that we're undertaking as part of the development of the project to keep on shaping it up. And on that specific point, the one thing to flag as well is that you can find how we're going to be assessing each one of the options that we've put forward, and you can read more about that in chapter 5 of the consultation technical report. We have also put a fact sheet on that as well. And then last but not least, when will we know which concepts and options have been selected? So as I mentioned, next year we will be holding a statutory consultation in which more detailed proposals will be presented, and these proposals will be informed by a number of considerations, including, as I said, like the feedback that we receive at the current consultation. So on that note, if we can move on then to the next slide. So as I said at the beginning, the consultation is still running until the 9th of June. There's still plenty of opportunities to engage with it. Just as a reminder, so we have this set of virtual consultation rooms, which provide more information on each section of the consultation, as well as we have a dedicated one for customer experience and railway operations, and you can find like all the key documents, the maps, all in one place. We also have a series of live chat events that are open to everyone, which are basically an opportunity to kind of raise questions to like the people that is joining me on this session today. So basically it's that opportunity to kind of like speak directly to our experts outside of like the meetings that we're holding, such as this one. We also have a dedicated phone line, which is on 24/7. And we also, as a reminder, feedback form, very important. Please, please, please submit your response. You can do that using the online feedback form, but for those people who don't feel kind of comfortable using the feedback form, the response can also be submitted through free post as well, so that's all good. And then if we go on to the next slide, just as a reminder, when it comes to the live chat events, that so this week we're holding 2 of these live chat events, and then next week we're holding 3 more. These are the different times, just in case that you want to kind of attend one of these, or you want to tell your residents to do so. And then if we now move on to the next slide, going back yet to the point that I was making earlier around like submitting the response, you can submit the response by emailing consultation@eastwestrail.co.uk, but if you use our main email address, which is the contact@eastwestrail, we're going to be directing it to the right team. But yeah, and I think then next slide, please. We've now reached the Q&A part of the session, and for that, what we can do is we can take down the slide. We can see all each other's faces, and I believe that there might have been kind of a couple of questions through, but basically, so we can tackle those first, and then we can open the floor to questions. So there is a question from Steve, which I don't think it's specific to the current consultation, but we can address that, which is it's not only the construction of roads that is an issue, but the behavior of HGV drivers.
Yes, the behaviour of HGV drivers has been an issue, Steve, and part of the response from the Alliance was to recently introduce a new stakeholder manager, a chap called Mick Walsh, who is now in charge of some new traffic ambassadors on our construction stage 1 work sites, and they will be recording any issues, and any repeat offenders of any breaches will receive penalties. But not only that, we've had some issues regarding people not being clear on who an HGV belongs to as such. So we've been reintroducing new signage on all our actual lorries, and our contractors carrying that signage as well. And it's a matter that we're very alive to, and it's one that we're being very proactive on. But I think, Steve, if you have any particular issues, I'd urge you to contact the Alliance on the public information email. I'll put it on the chat bar, and they will respond.
Kate, if I can just interrupt you, we are in. I represent part of Steeple Claydon. We are in almost daily contact with Mick. Mick's very good. Mick's very good. Your traffic ambassadors, however, aren't exactly visible, and are probably not in the correct place to observe some of the behaviour. And that's all outside of the damage that is being daily increased on all of the local roads. You know, there are lorries flying about through the middle of the village at unholy speeds. The damage and the potholes that are appearing in local roads is making the traffic even worse. And when you've got one of these huge lorries coming towards you and it hits a pothole and rolls from side to side, you know, someone locally around here is going to have an accident in the very near future if the roads are not improved and the behaviour is not improved.
Yeah, I will take this back, Steve, because I know that there have been issues, especially in that area, and I know that Mick's working hard to try and resolve them with community members like yourself and parish councils, and some remedial work on some of the damage that's been done to the roads caused by HGVs as well. I'm keen not to detract from the consultation chat, if that makes sense. So perhaps you and I
appreciate that. But consultation should be exactly that, a consultation.
That's fine.
You know, rather than a set of instructions, it should be a two-way street. And people certainly of this village are frightened. They are scared.
Yes, I know we're doing quite a bit in that area. But no, would you like, maybe we can have a contact directly if we swap details, and we can have a discussion together.
Yeah, fine.
That's all right. I'll get your email address from the team. Thanks, Dave.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Roger has his hand up. Roger, please.
Yes, I wonder if you can just clarify. East West Rail Company is part of the Department for Transport. Not exactly sure of the right way of describing it, but you are effectively inside the department rather than outside the department. And I just wanted to know, therefore, whether what is being proposed is a reflection of what the department expects to be affordable, or what the optimistic railway operator thinks that it would be the best possible solution to all of the problems. I think looking, for instance, at the Marston Vale section, there are some very significant changes from stage 1. Likewise, the issues at Oxford and Bicester. And they clearly mean affordability issues will arise. And are you confident that the proposals that will come out of what is currently on the table for consultation are going to be affordable to the department?
So I'll attempt to answer that one if I can, Roger. First of all, to explain our with the Department of Transport, we are effectively an arm's length body of the Department of Transport. Yep. We're not directly within the organisation. So if I've understood the question correctly, you're asking whether we believe that what we're proposing is affordable. Is that the general?
I think that's the easiest way of putting it. Yes, I mean it is clearly a good solution as a railway operator. That isn't always what the government will actually accept. So I just really want to understand the dynamics between the funding body and this arm's length body at this stage in the process.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so to try and explain how we go through this process. Obviously, we're developing these proposals as East West Railway Company, but we're under constant review from Department of Transport. We have regular review meetings. They know exactly what we're up to. It's not like we're off in a dark room somewhere hashing secret plans. And obviously, before going out to consultation, all of this has to be signed off by the Department of Transport. We've obviously got quite a journey still to go on. We've got to get through this consultation, absorb what's fed back to us through this consultation, take that on board, and firm up proposals beyond that. And then we have a process where we have a business case approval process to go through to get the final funding agreement, the final funding agreed to undertake the works. But we've put forward proposals that we believe are going to be affordable. Obviously, we still have to prove that. At repeated stages throughout the development process. So that work is ongoing. As I stand here today, I can't 100% guarantee that we'll get that sign off at the finals, but part of my job is to make sure we do. So we are developing proposals with all of that in mind. And I think the important thing to keep in mind is we are talking about an important piece of infrastructure here. It's a strategic piece of infrastructure travelling through a corridor which is recognised by the National Infrastructure Commission as suffering from a lack of reliable public transport. It's a corridor which is seeing already quite large amounts of growth and will continue to see growth over the coming decades. And also it's a piece of infrastructure which isn't just for today or tomorrow, but it's going to be there for a considerable period of time. It's decades or you know, potentially 100+ years in the case of certain aspects of it. So we are building something really for tomorrow and beyond. And you know, as a result, we're not just trying to justify it on the basis of economics exactly as they are today. We are looking to the future, and that is understood by Department of Transport and Treasury and others. This is part of the solution for economic growth within the corridor.
Okay, thanks.
Brilliant, thank you. So we have a question in the chat bar around the recent announcement last week following the publication of the Williams-Shapps review from Caroline asking, how will the formation of Great British Railways impact you? So I'm not sure if Stephen or Martin, you might want to take this one.
I could try and answer that one, Jody. So actually, I mean, it's a really interesting report, Shapps-Williams report, and one that has been in preparation for quite a long time and has now been published, which is great. Previous to the publication, as an interested party, we were able to feed thoughts into that report, as did most other train operators and industry partners. Actually, alongside HS2, East West Rail are, I think, the only two named organisations in that report where the report actually says that the status quo remains. So our remit to develop and integrate the East-West, Oxford to Cambridge connectivity remains the same. So for now, it actually doesn't change our emphasis on building great infrastructure and that connectivity. I think there's some other questions in the Shapps-Williams report around the way that ticketing and fares are integrated on a national basis. That comes as no surprise to us. And the way that we've been approaching those sorts of elements of customer experience are absolutely consistent with the Shapps-Williams report. So I don't think it really changes anything for us. We've broadly been thinking in the way that the report sets out, and us as an actual an organisation are identified specifically in that report as the status quo remains. So I hope that answers your question, Caroline.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm not sure if Caroline, you wanted to say anything else, like you're on mute, if it was just like that Martin successfully answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, brilliant. No, that's absolutely fine. Yes, Roger.
Yeah, can I just come back on that? Is East West Rail Company going to be, I'm trying to find the right words to translate into the current structure of the rail industry. Do you expect to be the contracting party to a train operator? Is that the expectation when we get to the point where steel wheels will roll on steel rails, that you will be employing a contractor to actually run the trains on behalf of the company as the commissioning organisation?
I think that the honest answer to that, Roger, is we don't know yet. Right. There are all sorts of contracting structures that have been tried. There's a lot of contracting structures that are possible going forward. We are exploring all of those, frankly, working with the Department of Transport. But our emphasis, as set out in the Shapps-Williams report, is really putting customers at the heart. So whatever that contracting structure is, it has to support the best possible outcomes for the railway.
Okay.
Brilliant. Any other questions from this? I'm thinking Sean still hasn't raised any questions, or Steve, if he wants to raise another one. Oh, Sean is back, I'm not sure. Out of interest as well, like as the consultation, while you think if about other questions, if you have any, but out of curiosity, I wanted to ask attendees so far, what have been the engagement amongst your residents with the current consultation, if it was like something that kind of colleagues, residents are aware of, if you know, if they've been submitting responses on the specifically on the customer experience and railway operations bit, or actually, like, for some reason it was going like slightly unnoticed. I'm not sure if anyone would like to fit into that.
I don't think I know, but my belief, my feeling is that it's difficult to engage, is what I think people will be thinking. There's a big construction job going on in the back of Winslow, and it's getting on everybody's tits, if you'll pardon the expression, and has been for months. And frankly, they'd just like somebody to do the job properly and deliver a good service at the end of the day, and not quite sure what they can contribute in the way of engagement. Even I, as an experienced professional in this field, find it difficult to engage with the sorts of questions that Martin is asking. I mean, I'll offer one comment, and that is that I think it's important, and I don't feel the consultation does this very well, to see East West Rail as part of the national rail system. There is I think, a subtext in the consultation that talks about East West Rail as being Oxford Cambridge, whereas I think the majority of passengers will actually be using East West Rail as part of a journey, and will be using other parts of the national rail system as part of the journey. And it's actually that integration across the multiple operators that will be very important. And it does worry me that when we talk about the St Neots and Thamesford, the phrase, if I can find it in my notes, is a potential new connection. Not exactly strident in terms of a definite aspiration to ensure that that connection is actually made, and the operators on the main line are prepared also to stop there. So I just feel that there's more to be said there, and likewise, certainly from the Winslow perspective, west of Oxford, Oxford really isn't the right place to connect to the rest of the network, yet the service is always described as ending at Oxford. I know there are some hints that it will go on beyond in some way, but I understand that requires work at Oxford Station to facilitate that. Again, a more strident and forceful approach to say that it really does need to connect with BWR mainline services that did Cotandor at Swindon at the very least, and then go beyond that if at all possible with longer distance regional services. I mean, all of these comments will be in a response that we will send, but it will not be on your form, I'm afraid. It will be in terms of a written response. It's easier to do with that way.
Yeah, that's also fine. If people do not want to use the feedback form, that like we will review any submissions, and if anything on that, we just encourage people if they want to use the form as kind of like a way of structuring the response, if that's helpful. But if it's a completely different format, we will also look at it. So no problem at all.
Yeah, Geordie, Roger, if I can pick up on maybe one of the points there. And touch on another perhaps, and Stephen may be able to add a bit more colour to the second point. But in terms of the national network, we absolutely see ourselves as part of the national network. It is part of our remit to integrate in terms of the customer experience. We absolutely have to provide through ticketing, through connectivity, etc. So that is very much on our radar. I think the opportunity we have is to do it better based on new infrastructure, new rolling stock, and new stations where we're building them. And part of our remit as well is to demonstrate how things can be done better. So this is why the feedback on the ops and customer experience bit is really important, because getting that feedback now helps us achieve better for the communities and the people who will actually be using this railway. The connectivity onto the East Coast Main Line, it's not actually within our remit to specify the services on the East Coast Main Line. So yeah, I get that you appreciate that. So, but we are talking to other operators, and we're talking to the DFT about us facilitating, enabling that connectivity. So, and we can't say that it will happen, but it's definitely on the DFT's radar. So, and then just picking up on the remit beyond Oxford to Cambridge. I mean, our remit as an organisation is the Oxford to Cambridge piece. If the DFT, if the Treasurer were willing to fund opening out our remit beyond that, then of course we would do that. But at the moment, it's not in our remit. So, Stephen, I don't know whether you want to add to that point.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of points on that. I mean, obviously, as Martin says, it not being in our remit prevents us from, going on to deliver that additional work. But just because it's not currently in our remit doesn't mean to say that East West Rail trains, or indeed any other trains, won't eventually run through beyond the current two endpoints of the infrastructure works we're doing at the moment. important to understand that it's relatively easy for anyone to sit there and pick a destination and assume that just because there is two metal rails linking those 2 points that you can send the trains through. The biggest difficulty actually is doing that reliably, and part of the reason why we're stopping at Oxford initially, at least, is because we can't reliably provide a service beyond there. One of the key things that the railways are criticised for is being late, being unreliable, not providing what they promise. So what we're really focusing on is making sure that between Oxford and Cambridge, we provide something that is entirely reliable, or as reliable as we can possibly make it, and then focus on making sure that where people do have to change trains, we make sure that that process is as pain-free and as easy and as simple as possible. Yeah, it would be great to get through to other points on the network to provide further connectivity, and in due course that may well come. But there are constraints that prevent us doing it from now. There are other plans out there. Network Rail, as you mentioned, have got plans in the offing to do other things at Oxford that will improve the situation. As currently specified, as far as we understand them, we don't believe they're enough to allow east-west services to go through beyond Oxford, but they will certainly make operation into Oxford more reliable. And we're making sure that in the work that we do, we're not doing anything to prevent that onward extension when the time is right and the funding is available and the instructions come from the FT to do that.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Stephen and Martin. Any more questions? I see that we don't have any more on the chat. I'm not sure if Sean or Steve have questions. If not, also as I said during the presentation, and I'm gonna cover when we wrap up, but like if you have any further questions that like maybe not come up now, but like in an hour's time, you can send them our way to contact@eastwestrail.co.uk, and me and the other colleagues of that are part of the external affairs team like monitor that daily. So we would take that forward. So I suppose if there are no further questions, should we then kind of wrap up maybe and draw the session to close? Then, so if we can move on to the next slide. So in terms of what's next, so just as a reminder once again that this week there's still 2 more live chats to go, and then next week there's 3. As if we move on to the next slide, you'll find the times there. We've tried to accommodate as much as possible, kind of using different times to allow for people to join the session, especially mindful of people who work on the daytime. So there's evening sessions. We're also holding a session on Saturday as well as on the bank holiday on Monday. So leaving no stone unturned in that regard. And then once at the final live chat takes place on the 2nd of June, there will still be 7 more days until the end of the consultation, in which obviously if there's like different ways that you can flag and raise any questions to us or your residents, which basically is through these 2 main channels. One is the contact@eastwestrail.co.uk email address, but there's also the telephone number. What happens after the 9th of June? So as I said during my presentation, we're going to be reviewing all the feedback that we receive. We're going to be carefully looking at it, and we will put together a public feedback report in which basically we will kind of outline how we have reached some of like the decisions, or what are the trends or kind of like outstanding kind of preferences that we have recorded in those submissions. And during that period, we're going to be, as I said, like doing further work to further development of the project, and we will then put forward kind of more concrete, more specific solutions in a final round, in this case, like a statutory consultation that we're planning on holding by 2022. But even then, it's, you know, throughout this process, we will be further talking to you. We want to keep engaging with you, with your communities, and we see these as kind of like an ongoing conversation. So don't feel like that after the 9th of June, this is it, and we won't see each other until 2022 by no means at all. Yeah, so, and stressing once more, please submit response to consultation. If you have any questions, use either of those channels. And on that note, I suppose we can draw the session to close. Thank you so very much for having joined us this afternoon. It was a pleasure, and yeah, and let's keep on talking. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that Stephen, we managed to get in touch with each other after this call with the issues he raised. So, Stephen, I don't know if you're still on the call. Perhaps we can agree to sort of details.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay, lovely. And maybe I'll send you an email, Stephen. I'll get the details from him.
That's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.